welcome in everybody to another episode. Brett here chatting with actor Paulo Costanzo. I'm excited to talk about you and your career because you have had such a good career. I mean, you've done so many amazing projects, but thanks for your time and thanks for hanging out today.
Of
I
course,
appreciate it.
thank you for having me, and thanks for saying that. I feel very lucky when you come to think of it. Yeah.
Well, I want to start talking with you about kind of a fun intersection of your career, Joey, because we had your co-star Drea on. She
Oh,
was,
really?
she was promoting a new project, Collide, and I wasn't going to talk to her about it, and she sort of made a little bit of a joke, and so we got into this very interesting conversation about that show, and you came up in the conversation about just kind of how it was such an interesting project that came about because
I'm texting
uh
her right now.
yeah she we talked about it and she had some interesting things to say about the show and really sort of how it kind of like Friends ended and then now there's this like Joey spinoff. She played your mom and you played her kid, and it
Yeah.
was just kind of, and I was watching clips of it earlier actually. And there was one scene where you're trying to put a water cooler jug inside of a water cooler and water spilling everywhere. Let's talk about that because that was kind of a show that was on and then all of a sudden it sort of disappeared. uh
Yeah, that's so funny you bring that up. So yeah, I'm developing a podcast around that right now. So I've been thinking about it a lot. Um, I mean, there's so many things to talk about in regards to that show. I almost don't want to, I almost want to save it for you to listen to in the
yeah,
podcast.
no, we could totally do that,
But
absolutely.
I will say that both, so Dre and Adam Goldberg played my respective parents, and both of them were 8 years older than me at the time.
I
Which
love
was
it.
interesting and weird, but it was also like I feel like they were a little older than their years, and I was definitely younger than my years at the time. So it made sense. Like I was a very young 24-year-old at that point, like because my whole life was just like video games and weed and work. That's like all I ever did. Um, which is interesting. I'll kind of segue now. Which is so in between those two seasons, I did a movie called Everything's Gone Green, written by Douglas Copeland in Vancouver, and I was 25. Again, between seasons one and two, I went and shot that in Vancouver, and I just shot Upload in Vancouver. I've been
Yeah.
going back and forth, and it's just so interesting to experience Vancouver because it's been like 17 years or something since I shot that movie, since I've been in Vancouver working.
Wow.
And I just had no appreciation at that time for like the physical beauty of that city because all I was doing was working and like, just like didn't even leave the hotel room. I was just like hanging out, being like a dummy. And this time experiencing the city so now that I'm like an adult, it's such a beautiful city, my God. And I'll just because we're talking and I'm talking about things that are on my mind. Um, the first season of Upload was during the pandemic. I imagine you were going to ask me about Upload at some point.
Of course, yeah. I mean, yeah, that was great to see you on that in your character. Of course, yeah. Actually, I think we tried getting you this last
Oh,
season.
because you talked to Greg, you spoke to Greg Daniels.
Yeah, and he was
Yeah,
great. And then of
yeah,
course
he's
we've
lovely.
had Allegra on both seasons. Allegra has been on, and
He's so
then
funny.
we had Andy Allo too on as
Yeah, she's
well.
my co-star. Have you ever had Kevin Bigley?
No, every time we try and get him, it's a hard no.
He
Yeah,
is
he's
so.
hard to get a hold of. And we
It's a
missed the
hard
junket.
no.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. We did. This could be a conversation for offline because I don't want to piss anybody off in the business. But it like so the first season when it came out. Since we're talking about it, we had
Yeah.
him booked because the show was new and like everybody was kind of evergreen in this project, and then we had him, and then something came up with scheduling and it didn't work. So
Oh, you can get him.
I
He's
followed up a
so.
year later on the email strand, and whoever his team was at the time was like, unfortunately, he's not available. So then we
Dude,
got on
try
the
him now.
junket. We got on
Try
the
him
junket.
now.
I will. Yeah, I'll try now. We got on the junket, and we got Greg and Andy for the junket, which I thought was great. And then, but it's such a good show. I mean,
I
so
bring him
smart.
up because he's like one of my favorite. I'm such a fan of his, and I just got to know him my last time in Vancouver because I haven't worked with him. He's just so great and such a fan. I'm sorry that you feel he snubbed you or his team
Well, it
snubbed you.
wasn't. It's not even that. It's just
This
I
is
sound a
awkward now.
I
This is
sound a little
awkward.
well. Well, I mean, I trust you, and I don't know that many people with that
Try him
forever
now.
reach.
I
I will.
promise.
I wasn't. I don't feel snubbed, but I say a hard no because it's hard to get people when you're a one man show, and we've been very lucky to have like some really great people.
Yeah,
Obviously yourself in present company, but
very very sweet.
it's
Greg,
just it's
dude,
hard, because
right.
like these people have limited time. I get it. People are busy, they're filming. Some people will do projects or podcasts or whatever during production, and some just don't want to
And
mess
some
with
just
it.
hate you, like Kevin.
It's true. I know. Well, I'm sure there are people out there who don't like
I'm
me.
kidding. I'm kidding. Let's get back to me. So,
Let's
so,
talk about you. That's why we're here.
so yes. Anyway, so Vancouver is beautiful as an adult, and blah 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 blah. Just to finish the Joey thing. Yeah, such a weird experience. No one has spoken about it publicly, and so that's what I'm going to try to do in my podcast is kind of unearth the whole and like unpack the experience because I've been sitting with it for 20 years. I think everybody involved, there's something strangely complete about it, specifically in the sense that it was pulled from the TV from actual from it was pulled from airing TV while we were shooting it. So we were
Yeah,
like
it just went
we
away.
finished shooting we were shooting past the point where we knew it was not even going to air, which was such a mind fuck. Can I say the F word? I
You're
did.
fine. Yeah, that is
Um,
weird. It's one thing to do something and then not know if it's going to go up, but then to do something that's gone up.
it was surreal. It was so surreal. So much of it was surreal. Anyway, what else do you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I'll wrap with this. Like you literally cannot find episodes of it anywhere. Like there's clips online with YouTube,
Oh, I know.
but you can't. There's no DVDs. No, I'm excited for the podcast. I think people will go nuts for that. I think you've had a good career. I want to talk about Royal Pains. That's another great show that you got to be a part of,
Yeah.
um, and one that lasted for a very long time. So I want to talk about that because you had this intersection in your career where you did things and then you kind of, we didn't see you for a while, and then all of a sudden now you're popping back up on all these different shows. I guess my question would be, what sort of interested you in acting to begin with? Like, what was the draw for you?
Oh my
Because you
God.
got very popular very quickly. Like your career just blasted, at least from my perspective, and you just did so many different things.
Oh, it's such a long. I could fill so much of. Um, you can find this on other interviews. Like I almost don't want to bore you with repeat stories, but I don't know. My mom was kind of an actress growing up. She kind of forfeited her career because she had me, and she was a single mom. Um, but I always wanted to do. I was one of those like really shy kids who had like this inner playful guy that I was afraid to show to the world, and then maybe I haven't. There was just a moment in high school where I was in an art school for music for trumpet, and I hated trumpet. I just was kind of doing it because I don't even know why. But there was one moment where there was this guy who was like he wasn't like a bully. He was just a big guy that I knew, and he was sitting next to me in class. And I just remember this one moment where I dropped my test by accident on the ground and I went to pick it up. And as I went to pick it up, his huge boot or whatever he was wearing, he just stomped on it. Just like this strange, out of the blue, mean gesture. And I looked up at him and he was just kind of sneering at me. And I just felt so, and I just had nothing to do. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. And I picked up my test and I had to do the whole test with his boot print on my,
Wow.
and that was like a very solidifying moment for me where like I'm thankful that he did that because I just decided I was like I'm not gonna be this shy guy anymore. Like I'm gonna it like lit a fire under me, and that helped to kind of to create a kind of a moment, like a force, like a momentum to getting what I really wanted, which was to become an actor. And then I rode that wave, and then I became like the musical theater guy. And my first role was Tony in West Side Story, which was like not a small role that I had to fight for really hard, and like I, practiced for months to audition for it, and yeah, and I guess the rest is kind of history. I don't know if I've ever told that story before.
I've watched a lot of your interviews, but
I remember that guy's name. I'm not going to say it, but I remember his name. And he was so nice to me before. It was
that's
such a
funny that
weird
you
moment.
remember him. I wonder if looks at you now and goes, "Man, this
Well,
guy."
the best revenge is success. Every bully I
Yeah.
had in high school, I'm like, especially when Road Trip came out, I was like, I know they all
Oh, that was
suck.
probably a big like
Like,
F you. Like,
yeah, it
well, it's
felt good.
funny. Drea said the same thing. She got into acting as a revenge against guys that she dated that wanted to become actors. And they're like, well, she's not going to ever do anything. And then she did a few things and then landed The Sopranos. And the rest is history for her as well.
She's texting
Uh,
back. I haven't texted her in like years.
she's
I just said, talking about you in an interview right now. It's Paulo. And she said, who's this? So I'm saying, Paulo, again. Let's see what she says. You're witnessing me reconnecting with Dre after years uh, in real time. Okay.
I love it. So again, Road Trip, another defining moment.
Costanzo, Joey, come on. Okay, go ahead.
Road Trip, another great hit. I mean, that was a huge kind of in that time capsule of, teen type stories
Yeah,
and
that was
movies.
weird. That was a whole Cinderella story in itself.
Really? So was that not something that you wanted or expected, or you wanted really bad and you wound up getting it?
Um, I was doing Canadian TV. I dropped out of theater school because I was getting work, and then there was like a long period. Forgive my straw.
That's okay. It's a good straw. It's a good color.
Um, there was a period where I wasn't getting work, and then um, I started to doubt myself. I was like, shit, am I gonna have to like change careers, or what have I done? Like, did I make a mistake? And then through a series of events, another story that I can't tell now, it's too long, but it's really good. But anyway, I just hit this point where I stopped caring. I forget what happened. I just reached a point of like, who gives a shit? And then I auditioned for a couple things that week that I didn't even think much of. And then that same week, they flew me to New York to screen test for Road Trip, which was like for me, I'd never left the city. I'd never been on a plane by myself.
Wow.
I got the call that morning, like, you got to get to the airport right away. And I got to the room, and Ivan Reitman was in the room. No one told me that. I was like, what the fuck? But I was like, I felt very confident because, again, I had this weird kind of like, I don't care. Um, and I got that part. And the same day that I got offered that part, I got offered the part in a Gary Burns. He's a Canadian filmmaker. At the time, a very like successful one. He offered me the lead in his movie too. So like the same day, I got these two great
Wow.
offers, and I had to. And I remember telling my agent because the Gary Burns one was more of like an independent, like it was the lead, it was like a cool thing, and I didn't know anything, and I was like, don't I do this to do movies like this, like to play the lead in like a cool indie where there's like layers and levels, and he was like, no, you're doing the DreamWorks film, and I was like, what, really? And he's like, this conversation is over. Um,
That's hilarious. I mean, I think that's the thing that people, that's why I talk to actors and whatever comedians, people, because I don't think people know those stories. And I think they find them fascinating because, like, when we look at you as an entertainer or an actor or whatever, storyteller, we see the projects that you do, like Royal Pains or Designated Survivor, another great character arc that you got
that
to be
was
a part of.
fun.
And that was another show too that I really thought could have lasted the distance, but
Yeah, that's
it
a
went
strange
away
story.
and then it went on Netflix, I think, and then they sort of took their stab at it. Um, and it didn't make it, which was unfortunate. So
Yeah,
that was another good project.
that show was doomed. Yeah, That was fun though. That was a really fun. That was a fun character. That was such
Yeah,
a fun character to play.
you did good in that. That was really good.
Thank you so much. I
And
enjoy that. I enjoy watching. The writing was so good. It was just,
yeah,
it set me up just so perfectly. Yeah.
yeah, you did, and it was good. And the thing when it went to Netflix, I found interesting is they sort of kind of, uh, I don't
Darkened
know
it.
what darkened it. Yeah, it made it a little bit more
Wearing.
hardcore. Like there was some things in it that I was just like, wow, you can
They made a
tell.
lot of mistakes throughout the whole thing, and they had four showrunners.
Oh
They went
wow,
through four different showrunners in 3 seasons, so there was just a lot of miscommunication, and I kind of felt bad for Kiefer because he like really cared about the show, and he
yeah,
was like he put everything into that character and into that show. He was so professional, such an interesting guy to work with. At times he could definitely be like scary because he's like, he's Kiefer. Like he takes it very seriously, and things can get very intense at times. But it always came from a place of him just caring about the work so much. Like he just was the most prepared actor ever. So yeah, that was almost a little bit similar to watching Matt and Joey grapple with what was happening with that, like where you knew it was just wasn't going the way that he wanted it to go. And
right.
like Kiefer, they're similar in the sense that both of them had a very high bar of excellence for their work. And you had to be at their level or else you got in trouble, like, which is I think a great motivator for everybody. But
Yeah, even like that's a good point.
it was sad to watch both of them, these people that you kind of looked up to, watch the kind of ship sinking around them. Um,
Yeah, it's
uh,
unfortunate. And that's
yeah,
the crazy thing about your business is that like nothing is really ever guaranteed. I mean, even at the highest level, like you just don't know. There's no predictability with how things are going to go.
it's true.
I think kind of encompassing this conversation here, like what do you look for in a project when you decide when something's presented to you? I mean, is there like a sort of character that you want to play, or do you have a process in choosing what work outside of like having a conversation with your agent saying you're going to do this, massive tent pole motion picture?
Well, it depends. There's different points in my career because there's points in my career where I'm in a position where I don't need the work as much. And then I could be more choosy. And then there's parts of my career where, I just need the freaking work and I got to just take something. I mean, I have a freaking, I have to got to pay the bills. I think a lot of actors will, whether they say it or not, like Alfred Molina told me one of the first things I ever did was this made for TV movie with Alfred Molina before he was famous, and Linda Hamilton from T2, and she had just done T2, and that was like that was huge for me because that was my favorite movie. But I had scenes with both of them, and Alfred Molina was like he came over and that was another like turning point in my career because I was just this like Canadian kid, and I was really serious about acting, but I was like I was finishing my last day, and he came over and he sat next to me. He's like, you're a really good actor, man. You're really good. You're a really fucking good actor. And I was like, wow, thanks a lot. He goes, no, you're really good. You're gonna do a lot of shit. You're gonna do a lot of shit in your career, but keep going,
Wow.
keep going. And it's true. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have done mostly not shit. Just I don't know. It's just I've had a good run, but I've done things that just for the money too. So anyway, to answer your question, sometimes like with Designated Survivor, they came to me with that and I saw 2 pages of script and I was like, holy shit, this is the best character in the show. Oh yes,
Yeah.
I'll say yes to this. Um, but right now I'm in a state where, I'm not, I guess maybe I'm getting old. I'm just not, I'm having to fight really hard for roles that I want. So I'm developing things right now. I'm developing 2 features, the podcast. I have this like high concept short film that I'm also trying to get made. So that's what I'm focusing on now, trying to just make the things that I want to work on as opposed to wait around for people to come to me with stuff.
That's a great point. As we wrap here, I think that's a good message that, and I've heard that before. The part about paying the bills. I had somebody on recently who was on a very popular television show, Fox late night, was the competitor to SNL, Mad TV. And she said
Oh, no.
something very
Who
fascinating.
was it?
Mo Collins.
Okay.
And
I
she
watched
said,
that show. I like that
she
show.
said the same thing. The persona is, a lot of people don't want to admit that there's mortgages due, car payments due, and you have to sometimes take jobs because you need the work. But
David
she,
Spade said it on his podcast recently. He's like, look, man, when you're working, you're making lots of money, but when you're not working, you're not making any money unless you
there's
have.
no unemployment, there's no
Oh,
government.
Dre's calling me now. Hold on. Let me get it. Let me get it. I'm going to put her on speakerphone. Hello.
Yeah, who's this?
Is this is this Dre?
No, man, this is Francisco.
Hey Francisco, how you doing?
Good, who's this?
Do you know it's your old friend Paulo? I actually think I may have the wrong number. Do you know Dre DeMatteo, or is this just a different number now?
Mateo, no. I think it's a different number.
Okay, well Francisco, you're part of an interview right now. Do you want to say hi to your listeners?
What up?
What's up?
How you doing?
All right. Well, you did great, Francisco, and I'm sorry to bother you.
All right, no problem.
If you ever want to chat, give me a call. All right, I'll
Dude.
see you later, man.
Peace
Bye.
out.
Peace out. Bye.
This has been the best conversation. I don't even know. It's like this is as real as it gets, people.
I gotta find her. I gotta reach out on Instagram now. That was good. Well, at least you got Francisco.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a bullet point for us. So there's no excuse for people to not make content, like regardless of where you're at in this picture puzzle. Like there's too many outlets now to not create, right? Because you can wait around for things, but you could be waiting around for a long time, even at your level, where you've had, I say, great success, great shows, but you're doing the podcast and these other things that you're putting together. So that's a good thing, I think, for people to catch in this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It really is true. Yeah. Yeah. I got nothing.
I love it. Well, I can't wait for upload again. And of course, this podcast, you've got me very interested now. So
I'll let you know. Keep looking at my Instagram because eventually it's going to come out. I haven't actually done it yet, but
so is it going to be a rewatch podcast where you watch episodes, or what's it going to be?
I don't know.
Can you tell us?
That's an interesting idea. It could be a number of things, but yeah, it's in the early stages of development. I'm just starting to speak to the company that I want to work with on it.
I love it. Well, congratulations on everything, and I'm glad we were able to make this happen.
Me too, man. Thanks a lot. And I got to touch base with Francisco, which is the most important thing.
Shout out to Francisco.